I'm going to do where I'm at, where you're at, and where God's at. If I can stick to those categories, that'd be great. I feel like they're going to be all over the place. But so for me, I've been understanding that, and I guess I'm reflecting on this over a period of time, so I feel comfortable saying like this is like a finding so far. I'm instructed to be malleable is the word I used. I'm instructed to be adaptive, all these things that I'm not. Like, I struggle so much with change dynamics and hurt feelings, and I'm like, I can't be adaptive for you, God, but that's literally what I'm being asked to do. So I said, remain like malleable. There's this old saying that when everything is subject to change, and it's just like when you're having a hard time, but like challenging something, but it's like everything is subject to change. That's how it goes. And also I was thinking it's like things changing is probably some Buddhist thing, but things changing is like the only consistency. It's the only guarantee besides death that like things will change, like things are going to change. And I just have to be like really like, okay, resilient and adaptive and like, I guess go with the flow, but also like be healthy about it. Like, be present and welcome, the change, I guess. Another thing about where I'm at is I feel like I don't know how to say this, but there's like this like immaturity about this like narrative I have. Like there's this like it's very like childish tone to my like inner narrative, whether it's from being like joking or just being lighthearted or just being dumb or being like really dumb. It's very like, it seems like the feedback I get is like it's very so immature. It's like a very naive demeanor, and recently, so this hasn't been findings over time, but recently God was like, is it immaturity or is it like losing your ego? Which I think is really hard for me to like say. Like I feel like I'm extremely egotistical, but like when I'm just being like fucking vulnerable little dork, like that is like a form of loss of ego. And there's this, I forget, oh gosh, I need to write this stuff down. The understanding that I was given for that's come up a couple times recently, like, is this like the state of, I forget what the word, but like being assured by God, being so assured by God that all like everything falls away besides like this like immaturity. I don't know how to explain it. And so it's just interesting because I'm frustrated by it too. I'm like, I'm doing this little girl thing. It's really disturbing. I should be a grown up, and it's just like, I don't think it's appealing, and it's weird, and God's like, no, you're just like going off the criticism, but like, it just, anyways, it's like, it's an interesting twist to like my understanding of self. Where we are at real quick, so like I hear like my connection with God is I don't want to say it's different, only in the way that it's like obviously very audible, and my connection with God is very like you can witness it, more than like most people's connection with God. And that's like different, but like in that witnessing, I guess is where we're at, is like how does that prompt like your connection with God? I think I've said this before, like, are you still focused on my connection with God, or have you started your connection with God? Because that's going to be like, what happens, what happens moving forward. And so it's like my connection with God is very interesting in that it serves to bring other people closer to God. Not in like a very traditional way, but like in a very like rude awakening way, for lack of a better term. Just like super like you gotta consider God and all the things, and there's a lot to figure out, but like you gotta do it. Everybody like everybody's gotta do it. Another thing about where everyone's at is I think it's really obvious when God I don't know what word to use for this. Where I wrote roundabout, like the roundabout way of things. God's mysterious ways. I also wrote manipulation because, but like I don't like that word with like it doesn't have good connotations, and I want to say like what God is doing. So I say the roundabout way. It's really obvious when God does things in my life the roundabout way. And it's really obvious that I'm really frustrated about it, and like when I'm frustrated and how I'm frustrated and what I'm frustrated about exactly. And then I think people are sharing an experience that in some ways God's given them the roundabout way of things. Like, and it's easy to be mad at God about like, well, why do you have to manipulate me? Why can't it just be straight from the start? Why couldn't you like all the things that in our frustration we feel of like why we're missing information that would be important to understanding God and being closer to God. Like why would God want us to go roundabout to that information? And I'm like, we're all frustrated. And if we were more aligned with compassion, and if we were more aligned with spiritual maturity, God would be more straightforward with us, as well as me. If we were more spiritually mature and compassionate and healthy creatures, which I think there's like the hope of being, right? Like in a couple generations, God would need to roundabout us less, because there are understandings and lessons achieved through those roundabouts that are necessary. They're like building blocks. Like first you have to feel this and understand this and do this before we can get here. And there's that's a subject to change thing. Like, oh, I thought this was the plan, God. What happened? Like, well, things changed. But then in that same way, like, well, why would they change? Why wouldn't you just tell me the end result the roundabout way? I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think it's frustrating to be like, to feel like you're being manipulated. Like, God, I understand that I'm not strong enough to deal with this right now, but like, and it's like, I just think we have to like, listen to my own advice, but like, not be impatient, and like, just know that like, it doesn't always it doesn't, like, I guess that comes into defect in my life, because I feel like I'm like, I don't really trust you, God. Like, I don't really trust you to tell me the plan and tell me what we're gonna do and when we're gonna do it without like hurting me in some way. Like, I don't trust you. And it's the truth. God doesn't really trust us, right? Like, that's really what we're seeing. Like, God doesn't really trust us to hold truth responsibly. So therefore the roundabout way. And that can change, I think, as it has to change with God as a reality. It's just a new reality, sort of. And so that's where we're at. And then where's God at? Okay, this is really cool. A little nerve-wracking, but like very official. So God doesn't promise like all the things I need to know, right? Like, but what promises has God made? And like those, like, I can think of two off the top of my head. Like, I can think of two, three, a few. But like, what are, like, for sure, like, promises? Like, God is like, I promise, literally. And like, God has literally like asked me to write down, like start writing down the promises. And that's really scary stuff, but also, let's see, like, my favorite, most heart-wrenching, most beautiful promise so far in my life, I can't imagine a more beautiful promise, is like healing of loved ones. And God has like promised that. And while things are subject to change, God's promises also are God. Like, it's just like so special to be like, yeah, God promised this healing. Like, what a beautiful God. And it doesn't make me too nervous to say, like, it doesn't, I don't know, like, it's like, if God's ever promised you something, I think God has already promised us a few things. Like, I'm trying to remember some of the teachings in the Bible, but there's some promises in there, so this isn't weird. This isn't weird, okay? But it just was interesting to be like, I don't know, I guess I felt like, okay, we're doing this. All right, like, we're really doing this. We're really doing the teaming up for I don't know if it's new literature, but just definitely a new era, a new fucking era of God. And it's just like, well, as nerve-wracking as it is to write promises down, I'll have to do it at a more focused time. It's a good reminder. It's a good, like, reference point for, like, moments when I don't feel so looked after, or, like, understood or see, I don't know. But I thought that was pretty cool. That's a pretty big deal. Like, God's literally, like, asking you to write down promises. Okay, so malleability, aspects of my maturity. My connection with God is on exhibition for others to come closer to God. And we're all frustrated about being misled to be led correctly by God, and then God's promises. And that's where we're at today.